What's up, adventurers? My name is Platinum Phoenix, and welcome back to Ocarina of Time. Last time, we made it here to the Spirit Temple, but learned that we couldn't get inside without reverting time. So this time, we are going to see how far we can get now that we are a child. But before we actually head inside of the Spirit Temple, there is a few things I want to do outside of it. Specifically, I want to talk about these guys, and oh my god, there's a lot of them. These are levers, and I mentioned last episode that I was going to talk about them and then proceeded to completely ignore them. So that's my bad. But what the levers do, or where they are, is right outside of the Spirit Temple and within the Haunted Wastelands. And whenever you get too close to them, they will pop out of the sand and try to spin into you to cause you damage. So I would recommend, because they're pretty quick and kind of hard to land hits on, I'd recommend just avoiding them if you can, or using Nehru's Love to completely invalidate them like I talked about last episode. But the other thing I want to do before heading inside is there's this spot of soft soil that I just want to plant a magic bean in. This isn't helpful to us right now, and it won't be helpful to us this episode, but it is helpful in the future, so I just want to make sure to do it before heading inside. But now that we are inside, we can head back up here where we know that crawl space is and see a new person is here. I haven't seen you around, kid. What do you want? I want to see the temple. You're just a kid. The temple is no place for a kid. All right, fine. I am looking for sages. A sage? I don't know anyone like that. Fine. You know what? If I can't look at the temple and I can't look for sages, then I'm doing literally nothing. You have nothing to do? What good timing. Can you do me a favor, kid? Wait a second. I want to ask you first. You wouldn't happen to be one of Ganondorf's followers, would you? And what if I am? Wahaha! Don't try to act cool, kid. I was just asking. A kid like you could never be one of Ganondorf's followers. Well, let's cut to the chase. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Naboru of the Gerudo. I'm a lone wolf thief. But don't get me wrong. Though we're both thieves, I'm completely different from Ganondorf. With his followers, he stole from women and children and even killed people. A kid like you may not know this, but the Gerudo race consists only of women. Only one man is born every 100 years. Even though our laws say that the lone male Gerudo must become king of the Gerudo, I'll never bow to such an evil man. By the way, what is your name, kid? Blink. What kind of name is that? Well, anyway. I want to ask you a favor. Will you go through this tiny hole and get a treasure that's inside? The treasure is the silver gauntlets. If you equip them, you can easily push and pull very heavy things. No, kid. Don't even think about taking the treasure for yourself. The silver gauntlets won't even fit a little kid like you if you try to equip them. I want you to be a good boy and give them to me. Ganondorf and his minions are using the Spirit Temple as a hideout. Only the silver gauntlets will allow me to sneak deep into the temple. Once there, I'm going to steal all the treasure inside and mess up their plans. How about it? Will you do it? Thanks, kid. You and I, let's give Ganondorf and his followers a big surprise, shall we? If you can successfully get the silver gauntlets, I'll do something great for you. Alright, and just like that, we are given our mission for this temple. Head inside and get the silver gauntlets. But, wait a minute, did you just say that kids shouldn't be in the temple, or kids don't belong in the temple? And now you're asking me to go in the temple and get your silver gauntlets? Seems a little backwards to me. You have anything to say, actually? If you can successfully... Okay, no, you're just saying the same thing. Alright, well, with that being said, let's go ahead and head inside. And I think, while we are doing the first few rooms of the temple, I'm actually going to be quiet and let you listen to the temple music, because I actually really like the music that is within the Spirit Temple. I just wanted to let you listen to the music for a minute because it's such a good song and it just proves that Gerudo have the best music in the game. But with that being said, we just went ahead in here and fight a Stalfos, which is easily the hardest enemy we've had to face in the game or as a child so far. But there is actually something that is very helpful for fights like this, specifically as a child. And that is actually just Nehru's love. And this actually gives me a chance to re-talk about Nehru's love because I kind of talked bad about it last episode, but there are actually legitimate uses for it that I didn't bring up last episode that I probably should have. The first is that when you are a child fighting really strong enemies, you can use Nehru's love to be a lot more aggressive than you normally would be able to because you don't have to actually worry about taking any damage. As you can see, I'm literally just slashing away and not worrying about taking any damage at all because this Stalfos simply is not strong enough to get past the defense of Nehru's love. But the other thing that it actually helps with is it allows you to kind of make up for the fact that you lose a lot of the advantages that Adult Link has when reverting back to Child Link. So it makes up for not having things like the Bigoron sword because you could do more damage because you could be more aggressive. Or the Fairy Bow being replaced with the Fairy Slingshot because you're losing damage, but again, you can just be more aggressive. But next up in this room, we actually have a new enemy. But before I talk about it, I want to go over here and show that if we hit this switch, there is that ring of fire that is right there that we actually need to get this enemy to stand in. This enemy, by the way, is an Anubis. And apparently it did not want me standing on the platform. Thank you, Anubis. The main thing about the Anubis is that it is apparently super annoying. No, what I was going to say is it mirrors your actions whenever you are moving. So as you can see, as I move forward, it moves forward. As I move back, it moves back. And if I walk over here into this like edge of the room, you can see it's over there in front of the door. So we can just pull out our Fairy Slingshot and shoot the switch, causing it to be taken out. The other things about the Anubis is because it mirrors your movement, there is always a point in the room that acts as the center point of the mirror. For this room, that pot right there acts as the center point because that's where you meet up with the Anubis. And the other thing about Anubis is, as you saw, it can shoot fireballs at you. So if you have stuff like the Deku Shield equipped, it can burn your Deku Shield and cause you residual damage like that too. But now that we are in this room, the first thing I actually want to do is open this chest and get our small key to open the gate that is outside. And I actually want to talk about a character that we just met, but is super interesting to me. And I'm, of course, talking about Naboru. And I accidentally spoiled Naboru earlier in the LP. I was talking about the Divine Beast Naboris and accidentally called it Divine Beast Naboru. And I didn't realize it until I was editing, and by that point it was too late to actually fix or anything. So yeah, accidental spoiler to a character we just met. But the reason I actually want to talk about her is because she's super interesting, because she is the only character in the entire game, and I believe the entire series, that is specifically against her own race. And I guess even more specifically than that, she's actually against Ganondorf's rule of her race. She kind of acts as a voice of reason against Ganondorf's rule, and it's a real nice dichotomy between how we've seen Ganondorf act and how she's acting here. And it's really nice to see one of the Gerudo actually have an issue with Ganondorf, because all of the other Gerudo kind of acts like he's infallible or has no fault to him. And it's just really nice to have the alternate perspective. And to go to that point even more, we've even heard some of the Gerudo call Ganondorf the Exalted. So that's how far the Gerudo praise and see no fault within Ganondorf, just because he is the king of them and the only male. But the other thing that is possibly even more interesting about Noboru is the fact that she is the second in command of the Gerudo, as both she has said, and that the other Gerudo that gave us the Gerudo ticket or token also told us. And the reason that it is so interesting is because that can only happen in one of two ways. The first way is that she was just the leader of the Gerudo before Ganondorf was born. So whenever Ganondorf was born, their law took over, making him the leader of the Gerudo. So she was basically just demoted. But using that perspective, it makes a lot of sense that she would dislike Ganondorf, because it would have gone from her rule and her say about how the Gerudo stole and did everything to the corruption that Ganondorf basically gave them whenever he became their ruler. And it makes a lot, like I said, it makes a lot of sense that she would dislike Ganondorf because he changed a lot of how she would have ruled. But that's kind of the boring answer. The more exciting answer is if Ganondorf basically put her into the position of being second in command. Because, again, that can only happen for one of really two reasons. The first is that Ganondorf just acknowledged how ultimately strong she was and had no choice but to elect her as the second in command of the Gerudos. But honestly, that's less likely in my opinion, because it doesn't really seem like something Ganondorf would do. Like, I don't see Ganondorf being the type of guy that honors strength in others or really notices strength in others, really. So it seems really unlikely that he would go out of his way to almost reward someone for being as strong as he is. But the other reason is, again, the more interesting of the two reasons, and it's just that Ganondorf is keeping an eye on Noboru because she is so openly against his rule. And there's actually quite a bit of evidence to support that claim. Like, the fact that she is the only Gerudo here in the Spirit Temple is kind of odd if you think about it. Also, I'm running around in a circle and lost a torch, apparently. But what I was saying is that it's kind of weird when you think about her being the only Gerudo here in the Spirit Temple, because you would think that a place that the Gerudo are guarding would have more Gerudos here, and there's just no one else here besides Noboru. And if you actually think about it more in terms of this place needs to be protected, you then get to the point where you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, this temple is actually in the far side of the Haunted Wasteland, where it is required to have very specific directions from the Gerudo themselves in order to get here. Because if you don't have the specific instructions or the specific items to get here, you just get sent back to the Gerudo fortress. So you basically have to sneak past the Gerudo, know the Gerudo's secrets, and then have the specific items to get here. So what's the point of having anyone here to protect the temple? And when you think about it that way, it's almost like Ganondorf is just having her stationed here to almost keep an eye on her and to keep her away from the other Gerudos, almost like he's worried about her actually like poisoning the other Gerudos against him. There's, again, nothing about this is actually confirmed, but it's really interesting to think about. And there's actually more evidence to support that theory, but it's a spoiler for the rest of the temple, so I'll go over it once we actually get to that point of the temple. But with that being said, say hello to the temple boss. This is an iron knuckle, and I actually need to switch around my items so I can have bombs out. Basically, iron knuckles are walking tanks of enemies, and all you have to do is hit it to make it activated. And what I mean by it being a walking tank of an enemy is it has 16 hearts worth of health, giving it a pretty good chunky amount of health. But it also has this giant axe that it swings around, and that axe, if it hits you, does 4 hearts of damage per hit, which is by far the hardest hitting attack we have seen in the game. And it makes it really scary to face one of these, especially as Child Link, because again, we have none of the tools to make these fights easier, like we do as Adult Link. So the way I would recommend fighting these things is simply throwing bombs at them in order to break apart their armor. You just have to be far enough away and time the bombs, because when the bombs actually land on top of them, they deal the damage in order to try to break the armor. But if you miss the iron knuckles, then they don't explode right away and you have to lead them back into the bomb. But if we can go ahead and try to see if we can break apart the armor, they will go into a second sort of phase when the armor breaks. As you can see, they get a lot faster, and they will swing the axe more erratically when they get close to you. But in this phase, I just recommend going up to them and kind of just stabbing them with the sword, because as you can see, you can sort of stagger them with every sword slash, and if they are staggered, they can't swing or do anything with their axe, making them kind of helpless. Also, I guess I should bring up Neighbor's Love, since I talked about it being a good item for a hard fight. But Neighbor's Love does not really work against heavy attacks, and that axe swing is designated as a heavy attack. So Neighbor's Love doesn't really help against the axe swings. Oh, hey, what's up, Link? Surprised to see me? A long time ago in this world is almost nothing to you, is it? How mysterious. Even I thought that the tales of a boy who could travel back and forth through time were merely legends. Link, you have fully matured as an adult. From now on, the future of all people in Hyrule is on your shoulders. Maybe it's not my time anymore. Here's my last advice. 2 witches inhabit this temple. In order to destroy them, turn their own magic power against them. Hoot! Do you want to hear what I said again? No, I do not. I will continue to watch you. Hoot! And with that, that is the last time that we see who I will affectionately call Mr. Owl as he flies away into the, I guess, day. I was going to say night. But we do have a treasure chest here that we need to open. You found the silver gauntlets! If you wore them, you would feel power in your arms. The power to lift big things with A. But these gauntlets won't fit a kid. Plus, you promised to give them to Naboru. You should keep your word. Hey, where are you taking me? Yeah, let me go! You fiends! Ganondorf minion! Link, get out of here now! These witches, they're using black magic on me!